Salve ragazzi, siamo ritornati nuovamente con il canale. Vi siamo mancati? Siamo venuti a farvi di nuovo finalmente godere alla grande. Ricordiamo che poi ci sarà un'intervista speciale ai Jumpscare on the road, poi spieghiamo il tutto perché c'è stata la puntata, ma alla fine è anche più figa che non c'è stata, che c'è adesso, perché ci sono delle chicche. Sono delle chicche
sì, vabbè, ci sono stati dei problemi on the road di connessione essendo fuori in Unione Europea, ma siamo qui senza indugiare oltre, poi parleremo con calma in un altro episodio perché non vogliamo di certo togliere spazio all'ospite di stasera, amici. Cioè, noi con tanto piacere vogliamo introdurre voi per parlare non solo del suo dei Cynic, ma anche di tante cose riguardante proprio la sua persona quasi mitologica. Chiamiamo in diretta e da qui poi iniziamo. Vai maestro.
Paul, a te il cognome?
No, lo dici tu, dillo tu. Dai, dillo tu. Ok. Good evening to Paul and welcome to Calice Nero. Thank you very much for being here. Again, as we said before the show, for us a huge honor. Let's have this talk with us for an hour, and we hope that you will enjoy the interview we prepared to you. So the Maestro is really look forward to this interview because we want to touch a lot of things. We hope to touch a lot of things too. So without further ado, the Maestro will start the question in Italian and I will translate. So let's go into this forward. Vai Maestro.
Allora, ciao Paul, ben arrivato. Allora, prima di tutto entriamo nel mondo dei Cynic. I Cynic è un gruppo, una band, un progetto che va a mischiare il death con il jazz. Quindi il jazz cerchiamo di far sì che questo genere entri nella letteratura, ma in una letteratura romanzesca. Quindi leviamo l'horror, leviamo il thriller, creiamo un romanzo con le linee di basso di Paul Masvidal. Come riuscirebbe a creare il romanzo, un colore e un aggettivo e un verbo per descrivere questa arte a 360 gradi?
Okay. The Maestro is asking about not a weird question, but a little complex one because it's like 4 questions in one, basically. He said that of course with Cynic, you just like combine some elements, for example, jazzy, progressive rock, alternative rock, extreme metal elements together. And he said that for in his point of view, your music reminds something like romantics, both lyric-wise, but also music-wise. Romantic not as romantic, like the literature of the romantic, most of the European literature, stuff like that. Of course, when we refer to extreme metal, we talk about thriller or stuff, but in his vision, the Maestro have a more 360 degrees of harsh literature, something that can touch the soul and the mind, both at the same time. About this vision, he's asked you if you agree with him, if you can elaborate more, if you want this kind of setting that he created for Cynic, but also wanted to know with your bass lines, with your playing, can you associate also a color to the Cynic music? A color which means, I don't know, something related to the psychology, the art, something really that can put Cynic music in a totally new world, based on what you create, the composition, the music, and the style.
Okay. Should I start?
Yeah, sure. You can.
And should I speak I can speak in paragraphs so you can translate, right? I'll do short.
Yeah, you can do it. There's no problem about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. Cynic, like other bands from our scene, like Atheist and even Death, we're writing, later Death, really post maybe, spirit, but right at the beginning of spiritual healing, I guess, is when he started to write more psychological lyrics. But yeah, trying to tell a different story, being interested in extreme music and having a real interest in pushing the envelope as an artist and writing the edges, but also doing that with the lyrics and the way that we tell stories and you know, for me as a Cynic person, early Cynic, the demo eras were more political, kind of reactive. I was angry at the world kind of stuff. And then I think what happened for me is I had a little bit of a spiritual awakening that happened right before the early days, right? I mean, it was happening throughout childhood, but right before Focus, I really entered this space where I was deeply into a spiritual practice and studying yoga. And suddenly it just made sense. This is, of course, what I'm going to be writing about. So it just kind of lent itself to write about more interesting things, being reflective of what was going on in my mind.
Okay, really cool, because basically it's like a transition between more, let's say, materialistic stuff, basically the answer to the, basically something that you don't like, to an awakening, spiritual revolution. Basically.
Yeah, like a reaction to the world versus going inward, right? It was outer material versus in. That's really what happened.
Okay, really cool. Ok, let's translate this and we can move forward, so to not be stuck Ok. Praticamente la musica dei Cynic nasce come reazione, tra virgolette, a questioni, diciamo, di vita vissuta che loro stessi non mandavano giù. Però si parte proprio di un'evoluzione, perché lui fa un discorso anche come hanno fatto gli Atheist o gli Ultimi Dead, che hanno iniziato con una questione più materialistica, più, diciamo, anche riguardante la situazione, anche chiamiamola politica, così, fino a raggiungere una sorta di rivoluzione spirituale, una sorta di risveglio spirituale che loro stessi affrontano attraverso anche l'utilizzo, non so, di yoga, pranoterapie e queste cose qui. Quindi fondamentalmente il loro lato romanzato nasce inizialmente da una critica diretta verso la società, per poi andare a toccare tutti i lati un po' più, non dico oscuri, ma dei lati un po' più introspettivi, che non solo accolgono il lato più spirituale e quindi più introspettivo del progetto stesso, ma che poi fanno sì che quello che fanno loro sia proprio una rinascita, tra virgolette. E quindi lui va molto d'accordo con l'idea romanzata che fai tu, Maestro, e secondo lui è un setting perfetto per descrivere appunto l'evoluzione totale del progetto nel corso degli anni. Ok.
Okay.
And what about the fact that the Maestro wanted to know about a color that can be associated with the music of Cynic? Which color
the color is almost like an opal. It's iridescent. It has all the colors in it, right?
Okay.
And not necessarily a rainbow, but do you know the iridescence, that word? It's almost like this. I don't know if you can see all the colors.
Okay, so like the prismatic,
like that holographic kind of iridescent. That to me, or the opal, you know, the gemstone opal, like that to me is the color of Cynic. It's
great. Basically, one color that represents a multitude of all colors, basically.
Yes.
Quindi il colore perfetto per i Cynic, Maestro, se lo vuoi proprio sapere, è un colore prismatico, come quello che ha fatto vedere, quindi in un prisma dove la luce probabilmente passa e fa vedere tutti i colori. Non è per forza, diciamo, una situazione di arcobaleno, ma è una sorta di moltitudine di colori che attraverso la luce, diciamo, ha tutti i colori in uno, per farvi capire, se ho capito bene. Meanwhile, just reading some comments, Norman says hi Paul, and Seb,
hey Norman,
I love the backdrop.
These are my friends.
Yeah. And what is the backdrop you have behind you? It's
This is a painting by the artist Jake Cobrin, who's a friend of mine.
You're painting.
Yeah, I'll get out of the way. It's
Great.
Yeah, it's actually called, I think this piece is called, is it Bicycle Day? I don't know if it's inspired by Timothy Leary, you know, like psychedelics, but it's actually, this is a print that's also, you know, you can wear the glasses, the 3D glasses, whatever, and it becomes multi-dimensional. But the artist's name is Jake Cobrin, and he's
Jake Cobrin. Okay.
Yeah,
we were speaking about colors, and this is this one is very colorful. So basically, it can be associated with Cynic too, I think.
Yeah,
because
definitely. Yeah.
If you wear like 3D glasses, you are basically open to another different dimension, you know.
Exactly.
And just I will translate later in Italian for the people that are following us. But my question is, what do you think about, for example, listening to the music of Cynic by headphones, closing your eyes? Can the music be like a parallel dimension for the listener? And what are the vibes that you, when you are composing or basically performing, what are the vibes that basically not you exchange with the people, but the energy of people to the musician? How is your feelings when you play live, or when, I don't know, people say, wow, I love this album, it means a lot to me, blah, blah, blah. What are the vibes that people is transferring to you, basically?
Yeah, Cynic, I feel like, is writing its own frequency, and it's more about me being a vessel for the information. Like, it's not really my personality. It's more of being open enough to receive, to download the information, and then it just does its thing. And I really don't know where it comes from. Probably some other dimension, really, because Cynic's music to me is a portal into another space. It really transports you. And I'm a big fan of music like that, historically, music that takes you on a journey, you know? And so Cynic records have always been these journeys, you know, and maybe that's rooted in our experiments with psychedelics at a young age and into our adult life. We've always been informed by the psychedelic experience. And the music was written in that space sometimes because it kind of becomes, you know, you become open to these extra-dimensional, interdimensional energies and even entities. And I think that maybe that's what's going on with Cynic's music.
Ok, quindi per Paul la musica dei Cynic, perché io ho chiesto se il dipinto dietro potesse essere associato alla musica dei Cynic, lui dice che anche indossando gli occhiali 3D il dipinto che c'è dietro può assumere delle forme un po' diverse. Gli ho chiesto quali sono le energie che secondo lui spingono le persone a essere attratte verso la musica dei Cynic e quelle che le persone danno a lui. E lui parla proprio del fatto che per lui il comporre e ascoltare musica come quella dei Cynic è come andare in una dimensione parallela, quindi si tratta di entità, di situazioni anche metafisiche che praticamente sono vicine a queste cose quasi eteree, quindi si parla molto di arte, di colore, di sensazioni, perciò gli è piaciuta molto la domanda che hai fatto. E quindi dice, sembra che tutto questo venga creato da un'entità che comunque spinge noi stessi a connetterci in qualcosa di molto più profondo. Quindi questa è una cosa molto interessante. Maestro, se mi consenti, leggo anche una domanda dal pubblico che si collega. There is a question linked to what you are saying. That's from Duarte Gonzalez. Sorry for my mispronunciation. Which is the writing process of Cynic?
Well, you know, I think for me, if I can break it down two ways. The more practical version is always writing music. As an artist, I'm always creating things. And when I go to make a song, I look at all of these ideas and I see which ones kind of survive, which one feel like they survive time and they have, you know, some weight to them. And then I go back to the ones that feel strongest and I start to develop it. So it has to usually have a seed idea that kind of births into the song. And then really it writes itself often. It kind of like, once you have that seed, it's just a matter of watering it, you know, and then it just turns into this beautiful tree. And that's really kind of the process. It's very much getting that root idea that has the kind of embryonic heart of the song. And then it kind of blossoms and it tells its own story. You just have to make space for it. It writes itself.
Quindi praticamente paragona il processo compositivo dei Cynic a praticamente un seme che viene innaffiato. Quindi dal seme innaffi e cresce la pianta. Alla fine la questione più pratica è di capire tra le idee qual è la più forte e poi coltivarla, perfezionarla fino a che non si ottiene quello che si vuole ottenere. E il parallelismo tra il crescere una pianta e la musica dei Cynic è azzeccatissimo, perché fa per la moltitudine dei rami di un albero, la moltitudine degli stili che si intrecciano nella musica dei Cynic è una cosa che comunque tutti quanti possiamo dire che come paragone è azzeccatissimo proprio per l'eterogeneità, no, di tutta la questione E una cosa che ho dimenticato di tradurre prima è che loro hanno molto influenza dalla psichedelia, e quindi fondamentalmente lo spettro dei suoni e delle frequenze, delle situazioni, li porta sotto una dimensione, diciamo, parallela particolare.
Ok. Se invece appunto portiamo la creatura Cynic all'interno di un tronco di un albero, però questo tronco non ha il colore marrone come si vede ogni giorno nella natura che vediamo occhio nuro, ma di un verde. Questo verde però è costellata da alcune petali di rose e anche da erbe grasse, ma erbe rampicanti. Questa erba rampicante, quanto riuscirebbe a entrare nel mood della corda del basso di Paul e all'interno del vostro batterista, quindi di quel riverbero, quindi di quel ritmo?
Okay, so the maestro used your metaphor about the plants and the trees, about the music, to give you a question about the mood and let's say the impact of a rhythmic session between the drums and the bass. And he said that he imagined the scenic music like carved in the wood, like plants and trees all surrounding this wood, something like that. How it's important the big a wall of sound between the rhythmic section and the importance of the rhythmic section in scenic music because of its particular style and the mixing of various styles. You know, how can be done, and what is the perception of the rhythmic section? You do it like a normal band, or you think about make it in a different way because you want to, of course, achieve I don't know, maybe a particular sound, particular rhythmic section, particular kind of stuff? What is your vision about the rhythmic section of Cynic in this way?
Yeah, each record is kind of its own journey, really, you know. And if you look at the like Cynic's albums, they each have a very unique process in the way that the record manifested. And obviously, Ascension Codes, which is this recent one, was extremely unique, you know, in that a lot of change happened in the middle of the record. And so there's that element of like each record has its own process. It's very interactive. Obviously, with Sean Malone and Sean Reinert, they had their own really deep chemistry that was profound, and they just were able. They had a lot of trust, and this is the thing that Cynic, you know, and I think this is the key to creating a band sound is you have to trust each other. You have to trust each other's ideas. And I thankfully got to that place with Ascension Codes because I had been working with Matt Lynch and I had worked with Dave McKay. He played with me for acoustic gigs and stuff. And I knew his work. So we had already a trust having performed together. And so this is the key. And I think, for example, my relationship with Sean Reinert, it was so telepathic from a young age, little boys, that we almost didn't know how to communicate as friends. We just knew how to communicate as musicians. That was how we connected, you know? I mean, really, I should be doing this. And so this is really what it is. It's very much about built on trust because everybody is helping that tree grow. Like you're saying.
Yeah, like the roots of the tree.
Yeah,
no?
the network.
The
absolutely. Okay. And we're all in on it, you know? So it truly is a collective process.
No, it's really interesting the word trust, because nowadays maybe something is different in this society. So being that we know that the relationship between bands and people are friendship, trust, it's something that's really huge in my opinion. Huge. In a world that basically we don't talk anymore with people, we don't look at each other like some years ago. Trust, I think it's the best thing to build relationship, because with a band you have to tour, we have to record, we have to deal a lot of problems, so personal and stuff. So I didn't know before this interview about the word trust, but for sure I was like, in Cynic there is a great chemistry between band members and people, and I think that this affects not only the final result, but also the way that, for example, Duarte or people that are watching us really feel your music, not all live. It's like
that translates. Yeah, because that's the energy going into making the work.
Exactly. It's like the telepathy stuff, no? We knew stuff without talking. So.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I think this is what brings value to paintings, right? It's like the intention of the artist is imprinted in the vibration of the work, and Cynics always has that very strong intention. You know, there's a real purity to it, and it's built on trust.
Yeah, it's really huge to know that basically the building blocks of the music is these words and the feeling these people. It's really means a lot to me. So thank you for this answer. I think that it's great. Come le piante di un albero si sorreggono sulle radici, la loro musica si sviluppa su un concetto di fiducia tra i membri della band e sulla chimica. Quindi più che altro riguardante le piante, non è la pianta in sé, il fusto oppure il tronco, Alan, ma è proprio il fatto che ognuno regge l'altro. E questa metafora dei rovi, delle piante, a lui è piaciuta molto, perché tutto il lavoro di band si regge sulla fiducia e sull'amicizia, sul fatto che molte volte si era raggiunta un'intesa talmente tanta come tra i membri della band, che loro stessi sapevano già cosa fare senza parlare, un fatto proprio di chimica. E lui fa l'esempio non tanto del tipo di pianta, ma il fatto di come un organismo sa che per esempio il cuore deve battere, il sangue deve fluire nelle vene. C'era tutta una questione totale. E io ho detto che per me è una grande cosa sapere che al giorno d'oggi la musica dei Cynic si basava su dei concetti come la fiducia, l'amicizia, su cose importanti, perché comunque lo viviamo anche da chi sta scrivendo i messaggi, da chi ci sta facendo domande. Il feeling, l'energia si avverte, e quindi praticamente lui non parla di un solo albero, di una sola pianta, di una sola foglia. Lui parla proprio del concetto del come la pianta si regge sulle radici, come un organismo si regge sul battito cardiaco, insomma, fa questo riferimento che a me è piaciuto tanto, sinceramente. Quindi la tua risposta magari sei un po' uscito fuori, ma penso che era quello che volevi sentire, insomma. Quindi la questione proprio interna del progetto è proprio umana. Quindi
adesso inizio io e finisci tu la domanda.
Ok.
Ne facciamo una a metà. Io vado sull'anatomia e prendo Focus del 1993. E appunto a Paul chiedo questa situazione: se Focus fosse una parte dell'anatomia ancora non studiata, quindi ancora non scoperta, un'anatomia, un arto che l'essere umano ancora non ha, quale sarebbe l'arto perfetto ancora da scoprire per far sì che il Cynic con Focus diventerebbe l'apoteosi sanguigna, ma con eleganza, con un bicchierino di sottofondo.
E c'è la seconda parte della domanda, ce la faccio dopo.
La seconda parte.
Okay, Paul, an interesting question about the Maestro. Really, nowadays it's talking about 1993 Focus, the full length, no? And he asks about, since he loved the album so much, he want to ask you a particular thing. If Focus have to be something that is not already discovered from the human anatomy, let's invent and let's talk. What organ can be described with the music of Focus of that particular album? Because it's for it the vibe, the feelings. He said something unique. The album is unique. He said, let's talk about a new organ from the human compared to the album sound. It's like it's a crazy. I know, but something really can touch the heart, the feelings again, the sensation. What do you think you can describe Focus?
That's a good question, because Focus holds so much. And if I had to relate it to an organ, wow. I almost like, and it's, I guess this isn't an organ, but it's like I almost want to associate it with the lungs.
Ah, okay.
With the breath, with breathing. I don't know why, but that's what's coming to mind is just the lungs, the cavity of the lungs that holds the heart and keeps a lot of things in place. I don't know. That's just what's coming to me. I mean, it's funny, when you say organs too, I think of this one description that Bob Lazar would talk about when he read this whole breakdown. This is a guy that was reverse engineering UFOs. And he described this extraterrestrial that was held at this secret base. And when they opened up the body, they found it just had one organ. It's literally the whole thing was just like one organ. And it didn't have multiple organs. And I think like that could be it too. It's like this one single organ that kind of sustains the whole body. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I like imagining the lumps, the breathing. If we see a picture on basically a school book, it's like tree inside the lumps are like trees.
Yes, yeah.
And for this reason, I was connected the previous question, the tree, the roots, the plants. With this, it's kind of a circle that begins and closes at the same time. Like, yeah, it's really, really cool about that. And the Maestro asked also to me to make a second part of this question related to another album. So I will do it in English directly and then translate. Maestro asked you about Focus 1993. Now I want to talk about Kindly Bend to Free Us. That is a full length for 2014, I think. And how is the evolution in the composition and the perception of Cynic during the years? How much is changed? How much is evolved? And what happened? Not only about the technology and the way you track instrument, also the way you see things. Something that pop ups and say, "Okay, let's do the next step," or there was like a natural evolution of the project.
Yeah, it's always a natural evolution. You know what I mean? It's always kind of just staying in the flow. And I remember with Kindly, we were basically trying to capture the sound of a trio, the feeling of the three of us playing in a room together. And it was very much about deconstruction because, we had carbon-based anatomy, and it was in, traced in air. And it was this kind of space I was in that I wanted to kind of retell the Cynic story with a different musical language as a guitar player. I didn't want to use the same type of signature Cynic riffs. So it was about kind of deconstruction in a sense. And what happened as a result of that mentally was the bass came forward, and Malone's melodic voice really spoke very strongly on that record. And it was really kind of this raw thing of us just trying to capture this like rehearsal room vibe, like a demo. You know what I mean? It was not
the full energy of the trio, and basically take the energy and put it on the album, basically.
Yeah, and so I did less guitar layers. There's not a lot of layering of guitars. It's more vocal layering, actually.
Okay.
And more bass centric, bass and drum. Like if you just hear the bass and drum tracks on that record, it's incredible. Like those two are just dancing, and the bass lines almost are they really are their own song. It's fascinating how he weaves in and out of the vocal melodies and the guitar parts. So it's that was really kind of the approach to that record, and every record, they become a reflection of where you are in your life as as friends, as a band, all that.
Okay, really cool to know about it, because now next time that I hear Kindly, I will hear it in another way, in another perspective, because the sound was very huge, in my opinion, the record. But know that you want on purpose to do like a live recording. Let's circle about to maintain that kind of energy. I don't want to say blasphemy, but it's something near the experience of Metallica Black Album. They recorded like that to make the huge, of course, it's another kind of music, but just to know if I understood correctly. But the fact that basically it's more live,
more raw,
more raw, but it's clean and clean sound, and also the riffing is very crystal. I don't know the word. So maybe this interview will be good for people that are listening to Cynic from a lot of time. Basically, they can re-listen in another perspective the music, because we have this like feedback between each other, and since we are talking about feeling and sensation and stuff like that, we have to talk it, but we usually do not talk a lot about this aspect of the music. I think that a lot of people can have a more I don't know, more stimulation to say, okay, let's catch the moment, let's catch this and let's catch that, and reinterpretation of the music in a different way. Okay, before going to the next part of the question, which is like the roots of the band, I just want to translate these things to people, because they are of course asking. Let's greeting someone. Nico, Tommy, thank you guys, Bissactum, grazie ragazzi per seguirci sempre. Vi ricordiamo che siamo su YouTube, su Twitch e su Facebook, quindi non ci perdete manco di un minuto. Allora, praticamente, ricordando la questione anatomica, Paul dice: non ti so dire un organo nuovo, però quello che mi ispira Focus è i polmoni, le cavità polmonari. Se no, io ho detto: guarda Paul, ma guardando i libri di scuola non ti sembra che l'interno dei polmoni sembrano come se fossero delle piante? Il discorso abbiamo fatto prima, le piante, le radici, e quindi si unisce a questa cosa. E poi ho chiesto l'evoluzione che hanno avuto da Focus fino a Kindly Bend to Free Us. È una cosa molto bella che ha detto lui, che Kindly Bend to Free Us è stato un album che è stato concepito in maniera molto strana, perché avevano voluto raccogliere l'essenza dei Cynic live e trasportandola sul disco. Quindi non vedete tanti layer di chitarra, non vedete tanti incisioni, la sezione ritmica è come se ballasse tra loro. E quindi ho detto, è una cosa figa, perché io sinceramente non mi sarei mai aspettato di sentire un album del genere in presa diretta, cioè registrato in presa diretta. Invece è stato registrato in presa diretta, sono stati fatti poi degli accorgimenti, dei layer di voce un po' particolari, però il suono è più cristallino, è più pulito, ma non nel senso pulito nel termine solito, è più, come ti posso dire, più argentato, tra virgolette, più riflettente, se proprio vogliamo usare dei termini particolari. E ho detto, guarda che è una figata, perché in questo modo ci stanno talmente tante informazioni che noi adesso che lo riascoltiamo lo vediamo tutto in un'altra visione, perché lui parla di sensazioni, di emozioni, di respiro, del seme che viene appunto innaffiato e la pianta che cresce, insomma tutte sensazioni positive e quasi psichedeliche, tra virgolette, no? E quindi la cosa figa è proprio questa concezione che è molto diversa da Focus, ma rappresenta un'evoluzione naturale di quello che è il loro progetto. Poi io ho detto che di solito noi, passati 35 minuti, parliamo un po' dell'inizio della band, quindi io farei una domanda sulle origini dei Cynic, poi parliamo dell'amico nostro, insomma, l'amico nostro,
Mr. Chuck.
Esatto, parliamo un po'
prego.
Faccio io la domanda, maestro?
Prego.
Okay, Paul, the question about the Cynic's roots, basically, it's simple one, but also can be interpreted in a different way if you see the question in a different point of view. I'm talking about the early demos from the 1988 to the 1991, the Breed Beyond and stuff like that. How was the idea to put together a band like that and mixing all those kind of stuff back in the days that something like this was pretty rare? And what were the aims of the single members that founded that were in the first lineup of Cynic to do something really different than usual? Because of course a jazzy progressive stuff with extreme metal. It's not common nowadays. I'm sure that a lot of years ago in the 1988 when you do the first demo, but also in 1987 when you formed, were like rare, no? And what were the influence, the feeling, and what you basically want to say, okay, let's start a project like this? Was like straightforward, or was a maturation of thinking and things that were already in your mind?
It was definitely started more straightforward because we were just into intense death metal early on and thrash, and so it was a kind of hybrid of, and it became more death metal. I think by the 91 demo, it was full on death metal to me, you know, but technical death metal. And then I think what happened really was, but even back in those days, there was always an obsessiveness with originality. We wanted to be different and try and do something differently. And although we would quote things, it was done in a way that was never too obvious, you know, where you just don't steal directly. And I took this, I think it was Robert Venosa, the painter who's done the, you know, did the Cynic covers, who said something, and he probably told me this in a conversation, but now it's a famous quote of his, which is, the duty of an artist is to bring something new to the table, to really try and get out of your comfort zone and do something new. And I think that was really kind of our mindset, was let's do something fresh. Let's try. And so you have to kind of push yourself. And what that did is it pushed us into becoming better musicians. So we started studying more and we got into jazz. And once we developed like a jazz vocabulary, I feel like the world opened up, because suddenly there was all this potential for different, you just have a broader language, you know, palette as a musician. So we were pulling from all these different kind of references. And so that was really a big part of the evolution, I think, when we got exposed to more complex music. And it started to get implemented, the chords, the voicings, and we were very much applying it as we learned it. So we were studying this stuff, and then it was like, oh, check out this chord, you know, this, you know, and so we'd immediately put it into a song, you know, and it was, I think this was making Cynic more fresh and original as well, because we were leaving the normal straight scene. And you know, and similar, like a band like Atheist, I mean, it blows my mind to think of when Piece of Time came out. I mean, that record was so different, you know, so fresh. And they were really doing their own thing. And it was, so we were very much like inspired by that kind of thinking, like the Voivods, the Atheists, you know, the people that really made their own sound. And we're like, we have to make our own sound, but you don't ever, again, you can't force this stuff. It just happens organically too, as a result of just what you're listening to, what you're studying as a musician. Yeah, it all kind of came together, you know, trying to be a better musician, but also pulling from different influences. It became a big pot, you know, of stew of all these different ingredients, you know, and that's basically what the sound of Cynic became. It was like a little bit of this spice, a little bit of this, you know, this cream, this color, you know, it was just like a medley of spices that made this incredible brew.
Great, also because you like spoiled the one of the last question we usually do to guests, but you will know after the at the end about pot, drink, and meals and stuff like that. Maestro, sei un po' bruciando l'ultima domanda. It's great. And what is the jazz influence? What is the jazz artist that you look for that basically forge your way to put jazz into Cynic music? There is an artist that you want to mention, or just studying it?
I think for me as a guitar player, I remember like early on, you know, I got the Omni book, you know, it was like Charlie Parker stuff. And I was learning saxophone solos, you know, and when you start to develop a chromatic language with your, you know, with your ears, you start to hear chromaticism. It became very much integrated into Cynic sound. And I think that was one of the things that separated us from a lot of bands, is that we were borrowing chords, and harmony was more sophisticated because of the chromaticism. And that comes from people like a Charlie Parker or John Coltrane that taught me that you can weave in between the notes, and you know, you don't have to be in one key and stay. Yes. You can borrow a chord from this key and borrow this chord, and so you can bring in all these other elements, you know, again, this stew, right? And so I think, like, if I had said the root of it, it would be some of these saxophone players like Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Eric Dolphy. I mean, these were people who were like, I mean, I wanted to sound like them as a guitar player. You know, I was like, I want to sound like these people. But then also going further back, you know, Bach, you know, Johann Sebastian Bach, like if you, you know, and I've said this before in interviews, if you take his inventions, the two-part inventions, and you swing them, you know, you play them in a jazzy style, it sounds like jazz. It's classical music that was very evolved and very sophisticated and very chromatic. And, you know, I mean, even for example, I mean, all these guys like Debussy, I mean, that to me sounds like jazz. It's like full on jazz, you know, classical. So it's like all this stuff kind of connected the dots for us and opened up the possibilities of how to compose music. Suddenly we could do things in a chromatic way. And I think that was a big part of Cynic's sound becoming very unique.
Yeah, like your signature, basically.
Kind of, yeah. I think
your chromatism, yeah.
Yeah.
Ok, quindi praticamente la loro volontà di fare una musica diversa è nata da una situazione di ispirazione da un artista che ha detto varie volte che un artista deve portare qualcosa di nuovo sul tavolo. Loro volevano andare fuori dalla zona di comfort, quindi venivano da death, dal trash, insomma, però a loro la questione gli balzava di fare musica diversa dal fatto di avere stimoli diversi. Ho fatto un esempio di come si crea una sorta di zuppa dalla pentola e si mettono un po' di quello, un po' di quell'altro, un po' di quest'altro, e loro hanno creato con gli anni, hanno mischiato una loro visione. E io ho chiesto siccome parlano di jazz, di progressi, insomma, sul jazz, quali artisti, e lui praticamente ha come se avesse emulato il sassofono di Coltrane, per esempio, di Charlie Parker, no? Quindi loro parlano di cromatismi, questi cromatismi che le hanno fatto qualcosa di particolare, perché poi hanno creato una loro sorta di suono particolare che loro stessi nei riff, nelle composizioni l'ha fatti maturare. Lui parla anche di Bach, per esempio, no? Che se si fa una swingata su un tempo di Bach viene proprio jazz, insomma. Quindi la loro apertura mentale, il fatto di non essersi mai ma non hanno mai detto questo non lo possiamo fare perché non è così, questo non si fa così. La loro apertura mentale ha fatto in modo che la loro musica entrasse nelle corde anche di queste tecniche particolari che non sono propriamente del metal, per poi creare una cosa nuova. E lui ha sviluppato il suo modo di suonare proprio su questi sassofonisti praticamente. Intanto salutiamo Alex from Chile. E poi c'è there is an addiction to your answer from Nordman. In his opinion, Alan Holdsworth had a very monophonic saxophone approach for his playing. Of course, Charlie Parker, Alan Holdsworth. Gods of the music, basically, not talking about all of that. And his playing also had no tonal center root tonic, but I was speaking to the Maestro while I'm translating it. The approach of Norman. Congratulations to Normal for this addiction, by the way. But I was translating and basically commenting to the Maestro that the fact that the open minds and the think outside the box was the key to have something different, but not only in metal or with Cynic or stuff like that. In the evolution of music, without thinking outside the box, we basically do not have the chance to, for example, play jazz or rock and roll back in the days. So the evolution, the intercultural changes, also the influence, basically, also when we emulate someone that is, for example, I play the drums, but when I see a guitarist that can inspire me, I can also be inspired by another instrument. So basically the evolution of things is like a melting pot, as I said before. But only if you take it with an open mind, you can create something useful and also interesting. Because nowadays we have a lot of people that mix those genres. But back in the days, we're like a bat, no? Like a blindfolded bat. We say, okay, I do this.
Oh yeah.
But back in the days was completely
totally different. Yeah.
Also with that, for example, we do not. Of course, when you played with that, was like a different way to compose music back in the days. But I don't know what. I don't know how many chance you got with Chuck to compose together or only play live. I don't want to make mistake, but just to link it, because we talked about before the interview, how was, since we love that, of course, one of my best bands ever, how was working with him, not only live, but also if you composed something together with him, the approach of into the music, and if his approach a little bit influenced your way to do it also in Cynic in the years when you, of course, started your own project by your own.
Yeah, you know, I was a Death fan before we became friends. You know, I remember Infernal Death and Mutilation demos and being in the scene, and then a friend gave me his phone number or something, or I think it was his phone number, and I started to call Chuck, and we became friends. And I'm, you know, this is my teens, right? Probably 15, and I remember he almost became like an older brother to me. So I was very much, and he already had an established career. I remember he got signed to Combat, I think was what the first album Scream Bloody Gore came out on. And we stayed in touch. It was like somebody I would talk on the phone with once in a while. And, but, you know, working, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but yeah, the working with Chuck was basically, again, rooted in trust, because I had played with him, you know, for Leprosy when he had parted with Rick Ross. I had played with him for Spiritual Healing. So I became his friend that he'd call and say, I need help. I don't have a guitar player. And so we already had a little bit of a working relationship, right? So by the time we went to Make Human, Chuck always had his demos. He was in some ways, it's funny, and I don't want to, you know, criticize, but the way he would approach a song was very simplistic. He would just have, you know, this intro generally, and then the arrangement up until the guitar solo, and that would be the demo. It would stop at the guitar solo, and he would just say, we're just going to repeat after that. And in my mind, Cynic was like a band that was like an arrangement. Every song moves in different directions, trying to develop things and build endings. And I was like, wow, that's so lazy. You're just repeating the same thing after the solo, dude. But this is, you know, he had a formula, and he was very strict and disciplined about it. But I think because, you know, this was part of the Death sound, but by the time we went to Make Human, we had some trust. And so he brought really me in and Sean because he wanted to expand the sound. He knew we were these strange kids playing this weird progressive music, and we were very close with Atheist. You know, Kelly was like one of my best friends actually during that time. I mean, still he's a deep brother to me. But those days, Kelly was almost like a manager to us. He was cheerleading Cynic. So we were part of this like outsider scene in the death metal scene as these outsider bands, and Atheist were like brothers to us. So Chuck kind of, I think, got hip to that. He's like, who are these nerdy, weirdo musicians making this strange music? And he, you know, I think he wanted us to bring that to the table. He was like, I told him, look, Sean's a monster drummer. And he trusted me, and he brought Sean in. And so we got to like play with that with Chuck and kind of get into those songs and try and deconstruct them a little and embellish things in a way that were a little bit different, I think, than the previous records. So there was a lot of that room for play, you know, like we spent a lot of time, Chuck and I, just with two guitars in a room, just playing. And I think a lot of that gets entered into the music. Like, you know what I mean? You can feel that. It's a sense of camaraderie and connection. So yeah, I mean, our role is very subtle, but also very profound and deep, you know, and it's hard
So
to
it was not like, okay, this is your part, play live. It was like
no.
an exchange of energy between you, Sean, and Chuck.
Of course.
In fact, of course, that album, a lot of people like Alex or Omar say the best metal album ever.
No, non chiedere nulla questa domanda. Devo fare una domanda io particolare.
Okay, no, stavo di okay, meanwhile I will translate. A lot of people say that Human is the best album ever.
Yeah, and Steve too. I mean, as a bass player, suddenly he's got this melodic
George.
Yeah, I mean, Steve was just like doing something totally different, you know. So it was really three unique voices, you know, that kind of brought something new.
Quindi praticamente Paul ci ha spiegato un po' la situazione dei Death quando è entrato, che non era solo una situazione live, ma era uno scambio di idee e di energie. Anche quando ha chiamato Sean nella formazione, perché loro erano già fan dei Death e Chuck conosceva il loro lavoro con i Cynic, quindi hanno voluto creare questa cosa e c'era questo scambio di energie. Ma poi ci ha anche raccontato Paul come Chuck scriveva le canzoni, cioè lui scriveva le canzoni fino all'assolo, poi dice vabbè, tanto poi ripetiamo tutto uguale come era andato. Cioè lui aveva una visione proprio di fare le demo particolari, però aveva una formula che andava bene. Ma poi soprattutto quello che hanno fatto loro in quest'album è stato molto importante, perché da solo non sarebbe uscito l'album che è uscito. È stato proprio una sorta di cambiamento, non era solo ok, queste sono le parti, suona. Loro si sono proprio sentite parte di questa macchina ben oleata che ha fatto sì che poi Paul insieme a Sean, insieme anche a Steve Di Giorgio, hanno creato un sound particolare che con Human hanno proprio fatto arrivare, secondo me, l'apoteosi della discografia dei Death. E prima di leggere domande degli amici a casa, Maestro, ti faccio fare la domanda a te così.
Perché ci sarebbero due domande, una su Human e poi una appunto prendendo il cristallo e cercando di questo cristallo di portare il Cynic a livello dei Death e i Death a livello di Cynic.
Ok. Quindi allora, quando si sono influenzate le due band a vicenda?
Adesso vediamo un po' come farlo. Allora,
sì.
Human, Death, appunto come stavate dicendo poco fa, 1991, sotto la Relativity Records. Quando uscì appunto questo disco, come avete detto voi, uscì una line-up allucinante, una line-up da musicisti
con due palle sotto,
tutti si li sognano.
Esatto.
Paul Masvidal e appunto Steve Giorgio, con la produzione di Scott Barnes. Quando appunto la produzione di Scott è riuscito a creare un qualcosa di più particolare per Human, e quanto questo disco è riuscito a toccare l'arte con mano, quasi come sfogliare un libro e allo stesso tempo. Secondo Paul, qual è stato l'album più debole dei Death e l'album più invece altisonante? Perché è stata l'unica band, e non scherzo, che non ha mai
sbagliato. Sì. Okay, so Maestro is asking about since he listened about the exchange of idea, the way you in Human with Sean and Chuck, you write the songs and basic stuff like that. He also asked about the production. How was the production and how the production affected the final result of the album Human? And also, just a little fun fact, if you want to share with us, what is the best from a listener point of view, the best and the worst Death album? Because in our opinion, me and the Maestro, Death do not release a bad album.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a fun point of view. You have also the luck, the chance to have worked and compose for with him and also exchange ideas, as you already said. So speaking about the production, speaking about your personal taste, there is also something that you want to change if you have the time machine to go in the past and say, okay, if I have the chance to replace something, I will replace this or that, or you are fine with the final result?
Yeah, I try not to look into the past too much, because it's dead now, right? It's already happened and you can't change it. I am proud of the record. I think Human was a really special time and place, and it captures something really unique, that was very special to that time and to us as all musicians. So that, our relationship, our dynamic as friends. And it was probably, maybe a record where Chuck had a real sense of camaraderie. Like, we felt like a band, we really felt very close. And we were all just in a very similar place. And I think the difference and I have to say this, with Chuck's music, where he stood out as a songwriter in the death metal scene, was his stuff was so catchy. He just knew how to write a memorable, if you listen to, even starting with those demos, but Scream Bloody Gore, the beginning of it, they're like little pop death metal songs. You know what I mean? They just have these hooks and these catchy riffs, and people weren't really writing that way with that in mind. I think he had a very good songwriting sensibility to write memorable vocal, parts, his phrasing, the riffs. And that was pretty special. But with Human, it was Scott Burns, and Scott was part of our family as well. I had already, I actually, Cynic made the 91 demo with Scott Burns. So we had met him already before we made Human. And I already had kind of worked with him. Actually, I met Scott Burns thanks to Kelly Schaefer from Atheist. And this, so it was, and Chuck already had a relationship, but when we were making the album at More Sound, we shared the same hotel room. We were sleeping in the same beds, it's like we were all like brothers, So there was a real trust, again, this sense of camaraderie. And Scott was basically a member of the band, and I think that Scott was so ahead of his time as I know there's a lot of different views, but to me, Scott was incredibly well-versed and sophisticated as an engineer. And he was taking this extremely brutal music and making it palatable. He was making it actually taste good, so it made it more friendly, and it got all the subtleties of a drummer like Sean to hear that stuff. Normally you would just be buried in a wash of guitars, and the bass would be buried and things like that. And I think Scott was really taking it up notches higher in terms of the quality, the clarity, the mixing. It was way more like, I remember listening to Human when we were listening to the mixes, and it felt very modern to me. It felt very futuristic in a sense. I was like, wow, this is really modern music. And I think we have to hand that to Chuck as well. I mean, obviously the songs, the vibe, but Scott, I mean, was a big player in that. He knew how to put things together. And I'll tell you, he has the patience of a saint. I mean, as a mixer and a producer and an engineer, because he did everything essentially. He had so much patience, He would sit there with bands that were fighting and at war with each other. And the thing with Scott Burns, all those years, all those records, he never took points. He never took a percentage, which is what producers normally do in these projects. They take a cut. Scott never took anything. He was so selfless, He just gave of himself in the name of the music. He was a real brother, was such a beautiful human. Thankfully, we're still in touch. I mean, Scott is a real legend to me, a real amazing person.
So his production was something that put the album to go at the top level because of his, not only his humanity, but also his vision. Because, of course, you both act as one, band and producer, to achieve the best. Okay, quindi... Okay, so before translating your question, there is
Scott Barnes.
Sì, ho chiesto per Scott Barnes, certo, ho parlato proprio adesso, fino adesso, però I want to Paul to answer some question from the people that are commenting. For example, people is asking the post-focus era Cynic, what song was hardest to write? Post-focus album.
Well, that's a good question. Hardest to write is tricky because some are really crazy, complicated, and difficult to write, and then some write themselves, you know, and it depends on the, I mean, like I would say Ascension Codes was the hardest to record because I was grieving and I had a very difficult time pushing myself through that. It was felt like I had weird survivor's guilt. I was dealing with so many layers of trauma. I still am. And so that record kind of holds that energy, but writing a song, you know, some songs, I'll tell you this, like the from like Trace to Nair, the Space for This, King of Those Who Know, those are songs that got very much deconstructed and put back together a million times before they were finished. It's like you turn it, you put it in every type of perspective before you, it's like a very complicated, long process to actually know when it's finished. And then there's songs, you know, I would say even, no, because Carbon came out very quickly. That was like a month of just bam, it just all happened. But from Kindly, you know, maybe True Hallucination Speak, like there were some interesting things that were happening there with the bridge and the song Kindly Bent to Free Us. That was a pretty interesting journey. But I mean, hardest, I don't really see them as hard as much as just they take more time. You know what I mean? It's more, it takes more energy. You have to invest more energy to actually bring out what it's trying to say. And so it's more, takes more patience on my behalf to make it, give birth to it, right? Or our behalf as a band. You have to just let it, you know, a lot of these songs, you have to let them settle, and then you get perspective, and then you come back and you adjust things and turn this and try this, and then you get back and then you come back in. And it's a lot of that, you know, it's coming in and out. So
the process is way, it's too complicated because you have to deal with not only your personal stuff, also, as we said before, try different ideas and feed the one that mostly are, you are convinced. So
yeah. It's hard to do anything else when I'm in the middle of Cynic music historically. Like I tend to not eat well, neglect all my relationships. Like I am swallowed, you know, completely consumed with the creative process. And it's difficult to do anything else in your life. It's like everything else falls out of balance. I remember even during Trace to Nair, I was just not exercising at all. And I remember going to a doctor because I had some symptom, and he says, you have to walk. You have to go out and walk every day. Like, and what I started to do was, I think I started to use exercise as a way to work on the arrangements. So I would literally get on like a treadmill or walk around the city, and I would work out the arrangements. And I remember very specifically, I think, via walking, I finished the arrangement for The Unknown Guest, which is a song on Trace to Nair. I remember it was like I figured out the whole thing by walking. So it's interesting how these songs find their way. You know, it's very,
yeah. Also, the inspiration you got basically by walking, and
yeah,
and something that you can even imagine that you can achieve by walking, no?
yeah,
So,
and it mentally kind of comes together. It almost finally forms itself in the mind, and then you just have to execute it.
okay, it's really cool about this stuff because basically people imagine when such complicated music will be composed, people like in the room trying and stuff, but you basically add the whole concept by in your mind, basically. By walking,
so. Or the alien puts the seed in my mind.
something
And I finally understand.
supernatural.
Yeah. I don't know where it comes from. You know, I can't take ownership. I can't claim possession of this. It feels very. It comes from somewhere else. But I do know that I have to be used for it to come out. Right? You have to be a vessel for it. But yeah, it's every every song's a different journey. You know, they're all really had their own process.
So it's not talk about which is difficult or easy, but which process is different than other, basically.
Yes, yeah, it's more about.
It's like every song has his own tales to tell to the people, his own history, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I always saw this with young guitar students where, you know, they want to get better, but they don't have the patience. And it takes so much patience to get better as a musician. You have to spend hours and hours doing these mechanical exercises that are so boring, but it's about synchronizing your left and right hand, right? You have to get, so it's like a brain thing. And then suddenly things click. But you have to be patient with yourself to develop that, to get to these, you know, these next plateaus as a musician. It's a lot of, I always say, just be gentle with yourself. Take it easy, you know. And some people are so, you know, this is why you see these kids sometimes that are forced to play piano at a young age, and they have the classical teacher that's whipping them. They usually don't pursue music. They're so traumatized that they don't want to play again because they associate it with this weird sense of discipline, right? Or there's the ones that just stay that route and become phenomenal musicians. But I always just, you know, propose, like, I'm a proponent of gentleness, ease, patience. Take it easy. It's okay. It's okay to suck today. It's okay to sound like shit today. It's okay. This is part of the process. There's no over there. Just be in the moment for your instrument. Show up.
Anything happens overnight, basically. We have to push.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, and you have to just keep showing up. That's it. It's just a very slow process of showing up over and over for the music and for the instrument.
Okay. We have a lot of things to translate, actually, but just one thing that I want to say to people that are listening to us, maybe the first time that they tune in Il Calice Nero. Guys, we are basically an Italian heavy metal, death metal, black metal, whatever you call podcast. So if you see us talking, it's to translate for our main core of people in Italian, not to disrespect Paul and his answer. Okay, so we try to we are the one of few channels in Italy that basically do this. So we have to deal with you from England that talks in English, America, stuff like that, and Italian people. So it's not a form of disrespect to Paul, of course, when we talk in Italian. Okay. I just want to clarify to people that are new, basically, to the show. About this, people is also asking you about the lyrics, because, for example, Omar loves when you talk about Buddhism in your lyrics. We a little bit talk about it beforehand, but how is the process of the lyrics? Is like the music, or it's more like it's different?
I would say the lyrics are probably the hardest part in that, like, I have to tell the truth, right? I'm just trying to get to the root of something. And there's also this poetic, metaphorical approach to language that I love. I'm a fan of that kind of, you know, poetry and lyricism and visualization. And so a lot of it kind of, the roots, especially the focus era, was like I was doing all these certain visualization meditation practices, and I would write about them. Like Celestial Voyage was a very specific meditation, you know, and it was, so you're trying to kind of capture these inner worlds, right, through language. And I feel like having been, you know, practicing in Buddhism, you know, working with the mind and having a meditation practice has informed the lyrics deeply, because you're really trying to understand how your mind works, and also trying to offer something, you know, that tells the truth, that is meaningful, and getting to that with a song is really, you know, it's like you're going through a maze, and suddenly you have to turn right and then left, and you're going up and down and backwards, and it's it's omnidirectional. So the lyrics feel like that. It's almost like trying to capture what the music is saying with words, which is almost impossible. because the music already says so much, right? But now I'm trying to kind of tie it all together with a language, with the English language, which is so limited. You know, I almost wish I could just speak like light language for Cynic songs and just make weird sounds, because it almost feels like it has more of that quality. But so yeah, but I also am a big fan of the English language, you know, and I think it's really, there's a lot of interesting ways to maneuver and write in it. So I've been a fan as a writer, a fan of writers. So I'm always interested in trying to write something that feels interesting and also has a poetry that it stands up on its own without the music. You can just read the words and it makes sense. It doesn't necessarily, but it also, it's so, you know, connected.
It's good when lyrics are the best, and they can have a lot of things to say even without music.
Exactly.
So when you have music and lyrics together, it's like the perfect mix to achieve something like we said about a parallel dimension, something ethereal, you know?
Yeah.
So it's good to have the both combination of the instrumental side and the lyric side, because also a lot of great crazy music have lyrics that is not say too much, but when not because we are interviewing you, but when we listen something from Cynic, for example, we have like the best of the both worlds, amazing lyrics but also amazing instrumental, because we know that you guys put the heart in what you're doing. Even when I for example expand my vocabulary while reading the Cynic booklets, because there is a research also in words, the way the words are put it there or in that place, or everything has a great sense.
Cool.
There is a lot of I think that there's a lot of research behind it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that kind of me too. Like I geek out on all that stuff, you know. It's like when I'm in my apartment that's down the road, I'm at a friend's place right now. I have a whole library of all the books I've read. You know, I've lost a few here and there, but I have a huge spiritual library, and I love to just go and research things. And you know, oh, I'm thinking about this that I learned from back then, and I go and research it. And it's like there's a lot of that investment in the lyrics too. It's like it's very nerdy too, you know.
And since the Maestro wanted to say something about the philosophical side of Cynic, you have some philosopher that you like that had an inspiration to you writing lyrics? Because we also love philosophy. Me and the Maestro we read a lot of books. In Italy, we have a lot of esoteric stuff, but also philosophical stuff. And we want to know what is if you can advise us some authors, philosophers that are good.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it would start with, for me, like Kant, you know, Immanuel Kant,
okay, yes,
and Descartes, and you know, and trying to think Nietzsche, of course, you know, like there's so many things I pick from them, you know, that you read, and you just, oh, that thing and that thing, and but also like I got into more of the philosophical, like the metaphysical writers and thinkers, like the Emerson, you know, Ralph Waldo Emerson, American. He was considered a transcendentalist, and he really wrote about self-reliance and just kind of the mind, and really helped me a lot. Really helped me a lot with his writings and stuff. But yeah, I'm a fan of all that stuff. There's so many beautiful thinkers out there, and you know, somebody who was really deep into philosophy was Sean Malone. You know, the Cynic bass player. He was like a scholar of all the traditional philosophers, and I think he even studied it in university. But yeah, so it does pull in some of that as well. You know, like that's why I'm careful to say Buddhist, because I don't ever want to say too literally it's anything. You know, they're not necessarily associated with a religious practice. It's
something like the spiritual. You know,
yeah,
about the spiritual revolution.
Yeah, it's like just a point of view, a way of seeing reality.
Okay, really good. So, Paul, before
Devo fare domanda anch'io, devo fargli qualche domanda.
Sì, ok, prima di fare la domanda facciamo un po' we will translate a little bit what you are saying, since it's a lot of information, we will do not miss anything. Ok, facciamo qualche altra domanda dopo, non ti preoccupare maestro, perché poi si stiamo dilugando. Proprio praticamente situazione di produzione. Il produttore Scott è stato per loro come un elemento aggiuntivo, cosa che l'ha fatto lavorare bene per quanto riguarda la questione dell'album con i Death, e sostanzialmente è come se fosse stato una sorta di personaggio in più della band, quindi senza di lui non avrebbero ottenuto il successo sperato, il successo avuto con quell'album. Non si è preso neanche le royalties e l'ha fatto per l'amore della musica. Soprattutto è lui il responsabile del sound che hanno avuto. Poi abbiamo parlato della questione delle liriche, della filosofia e della spiritualità, che anche tu hai fatto questa domanda prima, e abbiamo anche parlato della situazione di qual è la musica più difficile che ha scritto nell'era post-focus. Nell'era post-focus praticamente diceva l'ultimo album per lui è stato particolarmente difficile perché lui si chiude, si fa le chiuse per scrivere gli album praticamente. Quindi fondamentalmente lui non usciva manco a farsi le passeggiate. Sotto consiglio del dottore questa chiusa gli stava facendo male, perché poi anche con gli ultimi fatti di cronaca, con il suo ultimo album che appunto con i Cynic, ricordiamo che l'album che hanno fatto uscire da diciamo poco è comunque l'album che si chiama Ascension Codes, e per lui è stato molto difficile perché viveva vari drammi, varie situazioni particolari. Quindi fondamentalmente anche lui ha creato molte strutture solamente camminando, parlando, viaggiando nella sua area, quindi perdendo tempo. Non vi immaginate che lui si sia messo chiuso in camera tutto il tempo. Poi abbiamo parlato anche della questione delle liriche, e quindi la questione del fatto che loro ricercano anche le liriche come ricercano la musica, fondamentalmente. Quindi la loro visione è più spirituale, filosofica. Abbiamo citato dei filosofi come Nietzsche e come Kant, ma ce ne sono anche tanti altri. Infatti Sean Malone, lui dice che proprio lui ha studiato la filosofia, ma lui a casa sua c'è proprio tutta una piccola libreria dove appunto continua la ricerca. Quindi per lui la questione delle liriche è come la questione della musica, è una cosa che ha varie diramazioni. Spero che si sia capito, insomma, quello che ho detto. Vai maestro.
Allora, se portiamo due pesi massimi, quindi stiamo parlando di Death e di Cynic.
Ok.
I Death cerchiamo di portarli in un cristallo. Per quale motivo? Siccome, se non ricordo male, nel 1998 appunto uscì The Son of Perseverance, ci furono appunto influenze heavy metal, che ci fu anche la cover di Judas Priest, se non ricordo male.
Sì, Painkiller.
Perfetto. Quanto il cristallo riesce a combaciare la filosofia di Chuck Schuldiner e quanto la mente di Chuck Schuldiner riusciva a creare questo cristallo come se fosse stato creato a Venezia, quindi stiamo parlando di un cristallo molto molto delicato.
Okay.
Ma allo stesso tempo il Cynic potrebbe essere adottato verso un corallo, quindi ricordare un fondale, la sabbia, ma allo stesso tempo questo corallo, se si trasformerebbe in un animale cannibale, quale sarebbe?
Okay, Paul, the Maestro is like the comparison between, since we talked about before and about your relationship, the composition with Chuck and with Sean Reinhardt involving in the Death Project. He's asked you a little bit a comparison between the mood, since you were involved in the music and of course with Cynic, but also with that. How were the different music? We talked about it. You was like only do this and focus on the composing music, but at that time the situation was different, and how, of course, the way you worked with Chuck back in the days affect you, the way of you, of course, composed future albums after your collaboration with that. And also he's asked about making some pictures and paintings with your mind to compare Cynic, what you are doing in Cynic and what you did in Death, just to create with your vision your own picture. What you should be the painted, basically. Let's split the paint in half. One side is that, one side is Cynic. How it should look like the painting?
Well, you know, my relationship with Death was I made one record with them. I obviously had associated with tours and stuff with other tours, but I made one record, right? And I feel like I was in service of Chuck's vision with that record. It wasn't a Cynic album. It was a Chuck Death album that we were just bringing ourselves to. So it doesn't feel as personal. Do you know what I mean? It feels more like I was there for Chuck and I wanted to make that music sound as, I mean, it was my music too. I'm not going to say his music. It was our music, but totally different energy than a Cynic, which is Cynic for us was so rooted in something from early childhood, right? It has this kind of innocence to it and also this rebellion, right? It was a very like, you know, we were putting our middle finger up to the ways of the scene and just doing our own thing and really trying to carve our own path, really make our own road. And I think with Death, it was more just like, to me, like for example, when we were working on Human, we could have taken it much further out. We could have made it way more experimental. Sean and I were already on Mars, you know, when we were, but we knew, you know, we had to stay within certain parameters. So we pushed it as far as we could. And I remember instances where Chuck like reined it back, you know, he was like, that's too far. Right. And it's funny because you listen to, and I just said this recently in a talk I had with Kelly, where it's interesting that because Chuck, I think his records started to get more technical, you know, like in a very odd way. But some of those later albums, you can hear some of those riffs and they sound like atheist riffs or something, you know, it's like there's this very weird vibe going on. It's like, where does that come from? So I think he opened himself more to pushing and being more experimental with each record and trying new things. But he also always kept that signature sound that came from Chuck's soul. You know, it was his voice. It was his words. It was the whole imprint of Death. And so we were in service of that, you know, as fans. It was like, let's just make Death as cool as possible. Let's make this as fucking awesome as possible. So it was really, that was our thinking as young musicians. I mean, we were young, you know, but we were very connected to the sound. And I think Cynic's sound, if you listen closely, there's still Death references once in a while. You know, I always associate a straight 16th note, you know, any of those straight kind of things that happen is Chuck Death influence type stuff. It's part of my biology, you know, because I was playing it since such a young age. And then working with Chuck, I felt like I had permission to do that with him. You know, it's like I'm allowed to have a little bit of a Death quality, even though it's very subtle. It's there. Mm-hmm. And even vocally, like my favorite growl was Chuck, Becerra, Tardy, you know, Kelly Schaefer too. He was so vicious, right? Kelly's just like true. And but I love that style, you know? So it was like, and I actually sounded like that by the 91 demo and I destroyed my voice, but I really was such a fan of that vocal style. And Chuck, I feel like he took like a Jeff Becerra and made it more polished. It was almost like this because you could understand the words very perfectly. He pronounced everything. And it was really, you know, but that mid-range growl, oof, I love it, you know, still to this day. And then I remember, you know, to me, like probably one of the greatest vocalists of the scene who's still out there working. I mean, John Tardy, my God, like that voice, it's like, it is like from another dimension, you know. It's like, where does it, it's so powerful. And so I remember actually the first time I heard John Tardy, I was with Chuck at a show in Tampa or something, and they were called Executioner then. And he got on stage, and he started making those sounds, and I thought, holy cow, he sounds like Chuck, but it's more extreme, you know. It's like, so it was really, I think we were both like, wow, you know. And I know that on that first album on Slowly Rewrought, like there's no reverb on his voice other than like a few moments for effects, but it's just a dry vocal. And he had that kind of voice that had a natural reverb. It was so resonant. And I'm fascinated with that ability, these people that can sing like that. It's so interesting to me, you know. It's such an alien skill when they can control it, you know. Luke LeMay, I mean, you know, the Gorgut stuff, I mean, that the power of that voice, you know. So, yeah, and Pestilence, I think I remember consuming Impulse, Martin Van Drunen, man, that voice. He was just like gargling, you know, barbed wire. It was just like so, yeah, really sloppy, kind of raw, but man, guttural. I love that voice, you know. Anyway, I don't know. I went on a different tangent there.
No, but it's cool. It's cool. We were listening carefully because those memories that you are sharing with us are huge because we do not live that moment with you. So basically, we are like the grandpa that tells stories to the kids. No, we are listening carefully till the final moral. Okay, but what is the difference? Of course, Cynic music is your own, so you have to deal with your ideas. But how was the way, you know, you bring all the elements together? Because with that you say we cannot bring it too far, but with Cynic you bring it as far as possible, you know, because your mind and your influence are fluent and you are free to do whatever you want. But there is one moment that you say, oh guys, we make it too far, too complicated, there wasn't something like this, or you were like, oh, let's do it, we don't care about it and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always in service of the song with Cynic, right?
Okay.
The song takes precedence. The song is the priority. And so for me, like if it loses the heart of the song, you've lost the song. And the thing with a Cynic is that we're never playing busy parts or making things complicated for the sake of it. It's not like masturbatory, self-indulgent technical.
Yeah.
It's more in service of these ideas that tell a story and complete an idea of a song. So it's actually really, at the root level, it's very basic. We're just trying to write good songs, and it's not about technical or so. I think it's, in any ways, there is that degree of restraint, although it's anything is possible. And as a musician, you kind of that can do a lot of or have some freedom and facility. There are so many things you can do, right? But I think it's really kind of picking all those perfect ingredients to create this work that just feels complete. And that's what each song is. It's like just a little bit of this, a little bit of this. Oh, that went too far. That needs to get pushed more. It's like contraction and expansion. It's really a very delicate process of trying to kind of get something that feels complete. And you never really feel finished. That's the thing. It's the curse of all this, right? It's like it always. Yeah, it's a living organism.
I do want to make a little metaphor before translating and do, I think, the final questions, because it's very interesting. But I can imagine the Cynic music like a cake. on outside there is a perfect metal cake, uniform color. When you cut it and you take a piece, it's like a lot of stuff going inside.
Oh, yeah.
And when you taste it, it's like a colorful way to a lot of tastes, a lot of particular stuff going on. I can imagine like this, because we have a lot of elements, a lot of technical stuff, but not show off stuff. I just want to make it clear to the people that basically are not familiar with Cynic, but it's not for the show off. It's about mixing but not mixing to say, okay, I'm a good guitarist, so I have to sweep like 300 BPM. It's like to create something with different elements and create something that can be unique both as a feeling, emotion, as we talked about before, but also unique as playing and also the way that you achieve stuff. For this reason, you, of course, working with that, borrowed some stuff from him, but the fact that you are able to do things by your own all those years makes you that influenced that in some way from that album. Just say, I want to say something clear, but because you were working with Chuck, but you influenced in his way, because, for example, Symbolic or Sound of Perseverance are way different than Human. So you are aware that you did things like that and influenced also a lot of musicians nowadays, not only with the Humans album, but also with Cynic. You're aware of the influences that were going on and the fact that people look at you as a hero or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really pay attention to that much because I'm always just thinking of, I'm more interested in just making music and being in a creative process. Like, this is probably to a fault because we have never been good self-promoters as artists, where, I feel like I'm always more about trying to stay in a creative process and staying true to that and capturing something and sharing it and constantly sharing. And that feels to me like the priority, right? So yeah, it's really, it's a way of being, really, just to keep the mind open to possibilities and to stay in the present moment and to keep thinking outside the box, to just be thinking, pulling from different places. And it's one of those things where I've noticed this, something that's happened in my mind over the years is I think about something in the future and I make it much more difficult than it is. Once I go into it, it's easy, right? Or you just realize you can do it. But until you put yourself in it, the mind can turn it into a monster. And it does this with almost everything often. Like, you suddenly have a symptom, your throat feels weird or something. You turn, you think the most, you suddenly are Googling things and you think you've got, and it's like, this is what we do, is we trying to, so I always trying to kind of pull back and stay here and trust that I have everything I need in the present moment, and that there's not over there. It's no, there's nothing,
Be now in the present. Yeah. It's like the lady in Carpe Diem, no? Living the moment.
Exactly.
Ok, Maestro, prima di fare l'ultima domanda ti traduco quello che ha detto Paul, che ovviamente ha parlato un sacco. So Paul, we will take like a couple of minutes to translate, but we have the last question for you. So again, thanks for being with us like an half an hour. So we got a little bit carried away, but we hope that this additional time that we took does not disturb you to your things that you have to do in your day. Basically, sorry about that. We hope that also you enjoyed the interview too. And basically, be prepared for the last question, because it's a question that we do always to all the guests of Il Calice Nero. So will be interesting to know your own point of view. But before doing this, there is a lot of people that asks about translation. Don't worry, guys, we will do it. Ok, Maestro, praticamente abbiamo parlato della questione di Cynic, no? Giusto? Il corallo, il diamante, eccetera. Lui dice che non ha guardato molto agli album dopo Human, perché lui praticamente poi è stato coinvolto più nel tour che nella cosa della composizione. Però ha guardato molto Chuck, perché Chuck gli ha proprio ammesso in qualche modo, almeno da questo ho capito, che loro hanno influenzato Chuck e Chuck ha influenzato loro, quindi loro hanno portato uno stile a lui che poi si è riversato anche nell'album dopo. Lo stesso loro lui ha riversato delle cose a loro che poi hanno riportato nell'album dopo. Quindi è stato uno scambio di idee, uno scambio di cose. Quindi ci sono anche delle cose un po', delle chicche che faceva lui, che ha trasmesso loro, anche quello di composizione. Loro sono anche consapevoli del fatto che con quest'album hanno partecipato un qualcosa di particolare impresso nella storia, ma l'hanno vissuto sempre al momento. La stessa cosa per quanto concerne il fatto che, per esempio, molti dicono: ma siete consapevoli di tutta diciamo, la situazione, che siete comunque visti in maniera positiva come eroi da parte di molti band? Loro dicono che vivono il momento, si concentrano sugli album, anche riguardante la questione dei dipinti, di come si vive l'oro dipinto piuttosto che il dipinto quando loro hanno fatto Human. Hanno fatto che loro non riescono a immaginarsi un dipinto che li caratterizza, perché ci sono tanti elementi, ma non sono degli elementi fatti tanto per fare, sono degli elementi che sono fatti per la ricerca sonora che vogliono fare loro, che vogliono trasmettere con la loro musica, non vogliono creare qualcosa di asettico, qualcosa di show off, no? Per far vedere che sono bravi, qualcosa. Lui ha detto, Paul, che la musica dei Cynic è come una torta. All'esterno è compatta e c'è un colore solo. All'interno tagli una fetta di torta e trovi una miriade di gusti, una miriade di cose, ma è tutto in funzione al fatto che questa torta deve essere buona. Quindi la loro visione sul ciacco che hai detto tu, coi det, eccetera, è più una visione che non si sono mai resi conto dell'effettivo peso che hanno avuto con quell'album, e anche ciò che è stato rubato, ciò che hanno rubato e ciò che gli è stato rubato tra virgolette, nel senso di influenze, sono influenzati a vicenda. È tutto un discorso particolare che noi da fan lo vediamo dall'esterno, però loro dall'interno non hanno una percezione delle cose. Lo stesso sul cantato, abbiamo parlato del cantato, che a loro piaceva tanto, tra Jeff Becerra, tra i Pestilence per esempio. Cioè, loro erano entusiasti di questo nuovo modo di concepire le cose, hanno anche loro rubacchiato quella, ma alla fine non è che si mettevano tanto a calcolare le cose, quindi non ti sa rispondere sotto questo punto di vista, ti sa rispondere a livello di sensazioni. Alla fine loro volevano fare qualcosa che soddisfacesse loro al 100% nel loro animo, e si mettevano senza stare a fare troppi calcoli, concentrati sulla musica che volevano fare, concentrati sul messaggio che volevano dare, ma soprattutto concentrati nel sapere che stavano creando qualcosa fuori dalle convenzioni. Quindi lui spera con questa sorta di racconto di averti fatto capire che c'era proprio uno scambio continuo di idee tra le due parti, e che se non avessero lavorato con lui non sarebbero ciò che sono adesso praticamente.
Se chiudiamo in bellezza proprio con l'ultima domanda e poi lasciamo a Paul Masvidal il continuo della giornata.
Sì, già ce l'ho detto, non ti preoccupare.
Comunque ringraziamo a tutti, dal Brasile al Cile, all'Argentina, Portogallo,
sì,
Italia.
A lot of people are actually following the live stream from Argentina, Italy, Chile, England, Isle of Man, a lot of countries.
Portogallo,
yeah, Portugal. So yeah, we are like really.
Everybody, thank you.
Thanks to Paul that is with us tonight.
Paul.
Yeah, it's because of you that we bring a lot of people from a lot of countries.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you. I mean, I'll tell you, I didn't know what to expect. I get an email. I don't know if it was from Maestro or you. I can't remember.
No, yes, from Alan, the Maestro. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and it was like I just remember seeing like the email address or the name, and it was like Art Degenerate Fuckzine. I was like,
yeah, it's like
alone. I mean, the name alone made me want to do it. I thought this is
the Degenerate Art Zine is actually our printed zine, because we still do a printed zine.
Cool.
Yeah. We both have our own music project, and in our free time we have a musical association. We got the podcast here, the Black Calice, il Calice Nero in Italian, and we got an almanac, which is a like 300 pages of printed zine that it's like one a year, and me and other people are helping the Maestro translate, because we have a distribution in Spanish, in Portuguese, in Italian, also in Russian, but because of the war, of course, we cannot make it. Infatti ci ho detto, and basically the Maestro is collecting music from all worldwide. Basically, my bands were contacted by the Maestro before we got in touch and doing this. So basically, it's like the connection between bands, and it's like an old school black and white printed zine. So
that's awesome.
We call the Degenerate Art because in Italy, for the Vatican and stuff like that, we usually call the metalheads are called degenerates. So we're joking with this.
Cercherò di mandargli da una copia in regalo.
The Maestro asks if you want, he can send us a free copy of the
I would love it. Do you have in English as well, or
English, of course?
Okay,
both
I can read in Spanish as well.
We have Italian. For now, we have the distribution because it's almost in the process of publishing it. Italian, English, and Spanish, I think.
Awesome.
But of course, he will send you the English one. So
super cool. Yeah,
it's like something like that. All with music, music, books, and also paintings and stuff like that. It's really
very cool.
We love it because we love do it. So we are searching for the particular stuff, and we hope that we want to make like a printed way with the zine and internet way with the Calice Nero, just to have.
Yeah, I'm print, although I have a tablet and it's great for travel, I do miss, and that's why I keep all my old books, because I just like holding physical.
Yeah, also the smell of the paper.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad because I know trees and stuff, but it's but there is just something, they say that the trees are part of the knowledge, right? They're holding the knowledge, and so it just changes form. It just becomes.
We actually try to keep as green as possible, since we use recycled paper.
Oh, cool!
To make it, because we in Sardinia, when the Maestro is from, there is a the Impact Zero paper made with. Not trees, so we do not fall trees and make paper, but like polymers and stuff to create paper good as the natural, but not by killing plants, basically.
Awesome.
So we have this deal with this this shop that make this kind of paper. It's like the normal one, so we try to keep it as ecological and ethical possible. So
awesome, good.
It's a little bit expensive than print on the paper, but for the planet, we have to live on this planet, so we have to do it.
Good on you. That's cool. Right on.
So I also collaborating with Sea Shepherd and stuff like that. So
really? Okay. I have some friends that work for them. They live on.
In Italy, a lot of stuff going on because we are involved in the green and stuff like that. So
awesome. Yeah, Sea Shepherd's incredible.
Sea Shepherds for the sea, of course. We have a lot of guys that helps to clean streets and stuff like that. So we are into it. Of course, we don't talk about Satan and stuff like that. We are good guys.
Yeah, good. Well, then my intuition led me to the right place. I'm glad
and of course, the Maestro is honored if you like it to send you basically a free copy of the zine. So.
I would be grateful. I would love to.
So in private, you can talk with him about the address and stuff like that. So he will send you, because it's like in the process of being published. I really look forward about it, because it's a review on it about my band because like one single number per year, because it's too much stuff going on. So you can imagine the work that he's doing for like 300, 200 pages. It's like a book,
That's a lot.
So we met 1 year before, and I sent. This is like a crazy time. He built relationship with the zine. So cool. We love that you noticed that on the email. Quindi Alan, ti ringrazio per il fatto della mail, della zine.
Io ringrazierei a lui.
Maestro, thanks you a lot for your opinion about the zine, and we hope that you will like it.
Mancherebbe altro.
Quindi, we love this stuff, but the final question, Maestro, can I make it to Paolo?
Sì, l'ultima domanda. Allora, prima di tutto i Cynic hanno creato un qualcosa di storico, hanno creato un qualcosa di indimenticabile, perché oggi proprio ce ne siamo un attimo accorti. Con tutti quelli che ci hanno seguiti hanno creato la storia, non sto scherzando, hanno creato una sorta di arte che altre band non sono riuscite, hanno fallito, anche band note, non sto scherzando. Anche a livello dei pastiness, diciamo che Cynic e Death sono 20 gradini più in alto, senza nulla togliere ai pastiness, però
ma anche proprio l'impatto storico, esatto.
Sì, infatti. Quindi a Paul Masvidal vorrei chiedere i colori che mi vengono in mente, come il verde, la natura, il grigio la desolazione, il rosso fuoco passione, ma anche il nero, quel lato oscuro di ogni personaggio dei Cynic, quanto potrebbero riuscire a essere la parte coinvolgente dei Cynic e quanto potrebbe essere anche penetrante per quel disegno che ha dietro appunto la schiena, il pollo.
E poi c'è anche la domanda dell'abbeveraggio, no?
Sì?
Okay.
So che
Okay,
tu
the
la
the
domanda
last question is about one question split into part. The first part is from the Maestro, and the second part is it's mine, basically, because we do the second part to all the guests of our show. The first part is about the colors. For the Maestro, he says that Cynic has before it's like a multitude of elements, multitude of color. He spoke about the green as the nature, because we talked about the seeding plants, the fact that music's like growing a plant and basically start from the roots and going on. So the green, the red for the atmospheres, and also the black for the kind of dark side of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to incorporate those colors and create something unique and psychedelic as the painting that you have behind you, can you describe a little bit with your minds, just using using your imagination, how this painting should be using these colors? And last but not the least, and we will of course let you continue your day without, of course, hearing two Italians that talk too much and use hands too much. What is the perfect drink for Cynic? If you have to imagine to listen with headphones, close your eyes and a glass of something that you like, which is the best drink that suits the music of Cynics in the best way?
Aspetta, prima di rispondere, è anche il piatto, quel piatto delicato che riesce proprio a sobbalzare il palato.
Okay, okay. And
Sarebbe
since we
più
speak
una
also about
carne
spicy and
raffinata
elements, not only drinks, can you also
oppure,
tell a meal that you
oppure
want to
del
associate with
pesce,
Cynic?
oppure del pesce raffinato.
Sì, 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 ce l'ho detto, ce l'ho detto. What are your opinions about this?
Well, the color thing, I'm trying to think like really how to answer that, because you're basically asking like how do you create the painting using the colors, right? It's like
Yes, yes. Also to fit those colors with the music also. We know that, of course, green, red, and black are common colors for this kind of music, but
right, yeah, there's
just to imagine something using the elements that that you described to us during the whole interview would be nice to just have like the Nietzsche Ouroboros, no? Start and the finish at the same time.
yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, like again, it's like the music does the painting, right? The music does the work. We're just here to transmute, to kind of get it out, right? And so I think each of like for me, like making a song or creating something with these colors, it's almost like you don't even know what color it's going to be until you finished, and then you see it and you're like, oh, because I have always had this experience with every Cynic album where you're making this work, it's coming through, it's all happening, it's a very kind of complicated layered process, and then you don't even know what you made, and it's not until after that you look back and you see the whole painting and you just go, wow, okay, wow, look at how did this happen? And you don't even understand how it happens. It just all the colors showed up as a result of your own presence. You show up and then the colors show up. So it's really, again, this idea of getting out of my own way so that this thing can kind of happen, can manifest. And each color, has a different role. It's like they each, like if you think about this pot of a song, the stew, each little thing has this little subtle space. And I think the thing with Cynic is that we've never really, other than maybe the demo era, but really focus and beyond, we were trying to capture almost these subtle hues. It wasn't very primary colors. It was like in betweens. You know what I mean? The gray and the in between the orange and the red and the purple and the blue and just how those blend. And it was always in between. So it's really this kind of, and I feel like that's how the music expresses itself. It's very trying to capture more subtle spaces. It's not angry, happy, sad. You know, it's more just
it's like a multitude of feelings and introspection and something that goes like a puzzle, you know, little pieces.
Yeah, very specific and very subtle, and more subtle line spaces that are. So it has that delicateness, you know. That's part of the sound of the band. It's very particular. I think that we're being very capturing something more subtle. It's not so literal in a sense, right? So the colors aren't so literal. The colors are more iridescent. Yeah, so that's kind of how I would answer that question. And then what was the second part you were asking?
Yeah, the second part is like the perfect meal and drink to listen to Cynic that fits.
Yeah, that's tricky because I do like, you know, I actually love interesting cocktails like alcohol, you know, stuff. And you know, I'm not a big drinker, but I do appreciate a really good cocktail. And I even like different kinds of beers and stuff. I love IPAs. But I would say, like, I don't know. It's like what came to mind when you first said it was because I just had it a few days ago on the beach. And it was a very interesting taste, this mezcal. It was had something that was like complex, you know. It was like, it wasn't too smoky. It wasn't that really strong, like how a mezcal can be very alcohol strong. It didn't have that. It was a very complex cacti and that agave, you know. And it was, I feel like that's just what's coming to mind right now. I could also get into like scotch and gin and stuff, and even, but you know, vodkas, you know. But I think for me right now, it's mezcal. Like that's what I would associate it with, kind of.
Okay, as for example, Alex saying that in his opinion, that and Cynic bring to him a new way to abstract the self from reality. Of course, no alcohol needed, but of course the drink have not to be only for the alcohol, because But I think that Paul said the cocktails, because of course the cocktail, alcoholic or non-alcoholic as you wish, as the colorful, all the colors, the eyes and stuff. They're like art pieces. I saw a lot of friends doing cocktails like little pieces of art that you
and
so
there's
it's like
also,
this.
I you know, I start my day with like a smoothie usually, and I make it, and I'll put all kinds of raw fruits and vegetables, and maybe that's really more akin to the Cynic thing, because Cynic is more of a, you know, healthy kind of oriented space. So I would get into that too, beyond the alcoholic metaphor, is maybe a really cool smoothie with beets and, you know, so you get the reds, you have the greens. I put some chard.
You can do the Cynic smoothie.
Yeah,
I will buy it. Not because but I will say.
That sounds awesome. I actually, now you're gonna get my mind thinking about this. I might have to.
Bands are making coffee. Bands are making coffee with their brand. But no one make it smoothie, no. So you can have the smoothie.
That's cool. That's a great idea.
And since we are from Italy and we love to eat, we love the food, we enjoy food. The most exciting food that can also be perfect for as the drink, as with Cynic. We have in Italian this fettuccine tricolore, which is like a pasta with also vegetables. So like it was red pasta because it's while making this tomatoes, or green because we put vegetables. So I think about Cynic like a colorful pasta. What do you think about it?
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see a colorful pasta. I mean, Italian food is so good. And what's really cool, there's here in, you know, in Los Angeles, there's a vegan Italian restaurant, and it's like amazing. I mean, unbelievable traditional Italian dishes, but all vegan, you know, like the creams, like the fettuccine, you know, the Alfredo sauce, like everything is, but it's really gourmet. And it's like, man, the food is so good, you know.
It's great to know that there is a little bit of this appreciation everywhere. So you can have your own stuff, but as we do, the smoothie and stuff like that, but also being stuck to innovation and tradition at the same time. So it's good. It's like Cynic, innovation, tradition, like both words in one.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
it was great, Paul. We enjoyed this interview a lot, and we hope to have you again here in another episode in the future. Of course, the door, if you enjoy it, if you love it, the door of Il Calice Nero is always open. But there is also Maestro. Do you like carbonara? As you said,
Carbonara doesn't it have bacon in it or something?
It's not like bacon, but how can I try and translate this? It's like bacon. It's like egg and bacon, but not. It's called in Italian the guanciale. It's not bacon, but.
I mean, I would definitely. I like all Italian food, but I don't eat meat, so it definitely would have to be a substitute. But I think I know I'm visualizing carbonara. I mean,
you have not to worry about, because in Italy we have plenty of meals without.
Oh, meat, I know. So. Yeah, the primavera and all the red sauce.
Yeah. Also the margherita, the pizza is without meat. So
yeah, although that's dairy too, the cheese, right? But you know, there's a whole movement now of incredible vegan cheeses. Like there's even a shop here that's all gourmet cheese that's vegan made, mostly nut cheeses, and they're incredible. They taste totally like the real thing, you know. It's fascinating how they can make a blue cheese out of nuts, you know, and it's so it's exciting for me because for me since I was a young age, dairy did not agree with my stomach. I was like, I think lactose intolerant, so I had a sensitivity to lactose, so it would hurt my stomach, although, you know, like I had it as a child, but as I, you know, it aged, you know, as I grew younger, I started to realize, I was like, oh wait, I don't have to eat this stuff, and it's made it easier for me because it's been better on my tummy, and you know, and also for the ethical reasons for this stuff. I like to
also because of course of meat that can affect also the environment, of course, the animals.
I don't want to cause harm. I don't want to there's so many, but I just rather not be, if I don't have to take the life of another creature, that's awesome, you know. I'd rather not do that. So it's pretty easy to make that decision for me, but
Alessio, of course, suggests you do not invent only smoothies, but also to invent Cynic carbonara style. So let's think about
that. It. That's cool. There's a
lot of ideas for the future in this interview.
No, I have a couple of friends. One of them started his own burger company, and I was like, man, you know, he was like naming things after bands, and I was like, we have to do like a really delicious Cynic like veggie burger, you know, like that's really unique. And he was totally into the idea. And then I have another friend that wanted to do a taco stand, and I was like, and naming them after bands, you know, and I was like, oh, what would be in a Cynic taco, you know? And it's like, so I love this idea of like associating food with a sound. It's
also we talked about a lot of sensations, feelings. So when you eat something, you have the whole world basically in your mouth, and the sensation, the taste is okay. So it's a great comparison between what we said and what is actually, because also food is art. So people do not, with the fast food and stuff like that, people is not like to enjoy it, but also to only eat to survive. But it's only the enjoyable part that we are a little bit missing. So next time you listen to Cynic and you eat something, think about it a little bit more. So with this kind of message, we want to close this interview because it's really late in Italy.
Okay, thank
we
you.
hope that you like the interview. Thank you, Paul, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appunto, di averti appunto in un'altra puntata su Calice Nero, perché sarebbe veramente un onore. Grazie di cuore, mi raccomando, non mollate mai e vi auguro un bocca al lupo per tutto.
Okay, so Paul, again, as already said, if you want to come back in this Calice Nero again for another episode in the future, the door always open for us. It's a huge honor.
Oh, it'd be my pleasure. I love talking with you guys. It was lovely to share.
Complimenti come persona.
And our congratulations is not only for Paul as artist, but also Paul as person, because this interview is 2 hours with us. You man exchange a lot of good vibes to us, and
you made it easy. It's because of you guys. You made it easy, you know.
And we are like we hope to meet you in person one day. Just to,
I hope so. I might be in Italy in September. We'll see. A friend of mine's a yoga teacher, and he does a retreat in the boots, right at the bottom of the heel.
Oh, okay.
And he lives between Italy and Mexico, but he's Italian. And
okay.
And I might go hang out because he has a van, and we were going to go up and down Italy, and he was going to show me all the.
I'm from the south, and while the Maestro is from the island, the Sardinia. Maestro is from Sardinia. I'm from Napoli, so I hope that we can have a real life meeting. But the fact is that if you have something new with Cynic or projects and stuff that you want to have, what we can say, another chat about music and stuff like that, the door was always open, because we really loved the way the interview went. In the fact that we are not talking about the same stuff, blah blah blah, biographies. We talk about the art of it should be made, the feelings, the emotion, the colors, and we hope that this kind of craziness about our kind of interview will be appreciated, not because of the questions, but because of the vibes that we want also to put to the other people that are listening to us. We try to make in a virtual way something that we will do in real life, because with the pandemic and stuff like that, and forced to be at home, we want to say a little message to the people is to trust you and trust the art as answer to the degradation and the illness and the bad things. Art has good things against everything, but also to say to the people that relationship and people have not to be sterile. So we want to create something different. Maybe we are not going anywhere, but we are having a lot of fun making. Because it's not like, it's like talking about things that we always wanted to know, behind the scenes stuff and stuff like that, but also to know the point of view of the artist, because you have the luck to live the things that we want to know in that moment. So your perception were different. And we hope that this kind of vibe was appreciated by you in this interview from our questions.
100%. I'm so grateful that you guys are interested in this stuff, you know, that you're curious, and that you have a very unique approach to conversation. This is what my gut told me when I got your emails, and I thought, these guys are a little different. Something's different here. And it just shows. It's like a very cool thing you got going on. So thank you for taking interest in my work and all these things. It means a lot to me. I'm really grateful. So
it's a little milestone for us, since we grew up listening to the music, your music especially. So it's a little bit to say meet the person in the right time to talk about something like that. Maybe some years ago, me and the Maestro were not able to take it in this positive vibe because of the pandemic stuff. But now we have kind of new soul, and we are like a little rebirth. We got into this, so we are really purpose to make this in a better way, not better way, in a different way, just to let people know something different. For this reason, we will always thank you for your time, because when a person give us his time, is the most precious gift that the person can give to us. So we really appreciate 2 hours with us. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah.
Have a nice day, and see you next time.
Yeah, grazie mille.
Grazie a te. Un abbraccio. A big hug to you, and basically have a nice day, okay?
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Paul. Okay.
Sleep well. Bye bye.
Ok, praticamente Paul ci sta chiudendo il meeting e lo ringraziamo tantissimo. Abbiamo superato le 2 ore, ragazzi, ma avevamo Paul dei Cynic, che facevamo? Ce ne andavamo? No. Quindi vi raccomandiamo le prossime puntate.
Veloce, che ricordiamo gli appuntamenti.
Domani ci sono i Grave.
No, fare la traduzione prima.
Cosa?
Per le domande, per le risposte che ha dato Paul.
No, ha detto che praticamente lui, per quanto concerne la bevanda, non me l'ho preso un po' dal momento, scusa. Per quando c'è la domanda a livello di drink, lui i cocktail per lui a livello di colori, come bevanda preferita per il Calice Nero, il cocktail, che sia alcolico o no, gli piaceva il fatto dei colori, le sensazioni, il mondo che ti si sprigiona quando tu bevi un cocktail, perché quando tu bevi un cocktail è diverso rispetto a quando bevi una cosa normale. Ovviamente, aspetta un attimo. Thank you, Alex, for being with us from the beginning of the episode, from the last things. We are translating it to Italian because, of course, people do not know Calice Nero. It works. We are mainly an Italian heavy metal podcast. So basically, when we do an international episode like this, we try to talk in English and then translate. Because like on 200 subs on YouTube, like 190 are from Italy and 10 not from Italy. So we have to deal with the both language. So not disrespect anyone. Comunque ho detto a tutti che noi traduciamo perché la maggior parte dei nostri fans sono italiani e facciamo una cosa in metà. Per quanto riguarda il mangiare, perfetto per i Cynic, io gli ho suggerito le fettuccine tricolori e lui ha risposto positivamente. E ci ha parlato del fatto che lui comunque è vegano, quindi ha un ristorante italiano vegano preferito che fa le cose senza, diciamo, gli animali, queste cose qua, non mangia animali, quindi lui lo fa stare anche meglio perché ha avuto degli episodi di intolleranza al lattosio e quindi lui la gestisce meglio. Fettuccini tricolori sono praticamente, penso che siano quella quando fai la pasta sia rossa, verde e bianca. Lui immagina come qualsiasi cosa legata ai Cynic come qualcosa di colorato, pieno di energia, esplosivo, ma anche non contenuto, ma come ti posso dire? Circoscritto in qualcosa, non è una cosa strabordante, insomma.
Ok.
Grazie Alessio, ovviamente anche a te per averci seguito con le
ragazzi. Allora,
okay, thank you guys for being with us. Be sure to stick with us for the next episode because we got an interesting guest tomorrow we have Grave, the band, of course.
Il 20 Brucia Records.
The 20th of May, we got an interesting episode with an Italian label called the Brucia Records. We do an interview and review live. And in 24th of May, we got Sinister. But if you want to be updated with the new episodes of Il Calice Nero, that again will be both Italian.
Lavorando ad alcuni nomi che non dico nulla.
Ok, fammi anche dire una cosa. If you want to stick around with Il Calice Nero, guys, always the episode will be like this, half in Italian, half in English. Just subscribe or subscribe on YouTube, turn the notification bell, aspetta un attimo, and of course follow on Twitch because we are both on Twitch and YouTube. The podcast will be aired at the same time also on Twitch, YouTube. The word is Il Calice Nero as written underneath. You can we have a lot of things going on. We got as I said, Brucia Records, an interesting Italian label, Sinister, Grave tomorrow. We will have Dark Tranquility at the Gates, and we are working on great names.
Preparatevi, perché ci saranno anche situazioni horror, ma non dico niente perché in via trattativa ci sono le video recensioni.
And also, guys, not only music, not only metal music, we also do a spin-off episode about cinema, horror movies, independent movies, artists in general. We got, for example, if you go on YouTube, we have a full 2 hours episode of special with electronic noise and drone music. So if you love something that is not usual, go to Il Calice Nero and stick with us. A pleasure and a big hug from il Margrave Anarca and il Cattivo Maestro here. Thank you guys, amici, grazie mille. Domani non si ferma mai. So show will never stop again here on Il Calice Nero. Thank you guys and have a nice day, evening, depends of the time zone you're watching, and as always youtube.com esatto, youtube.com/Il Calice Nero, twitch.tv/Il Calice Nero. Have a good night and see you in the next episode. Buonanotte, good night.